clapping. Riddles posed by koan are unanswerable according to the rules of common sense. The monks in training wrestle with them assiduously. But as long as they continue to think in the patterns of ordinary thoughts, they will fail the challenge of their Zen master. They are thus driven into a corner. Failing to satisfy the master again and again, they come at last to understand the futility of the everyday world's logic and knowledge. Thus they are able to see beneath and beyond appearance, and in time find their true selves. That will be Satori. A koan. Have you heard the sound of one hand clapping from the front or from the back? This use of koan as an effective means of education was systematized by the Japanese Zen priest Hakuin in the 18th century. Employing koan is the outstanding characteristic of Rinzai Zen. Soto Zen, on the other hand, teaches the use of Zazen alone. In the meditation hall, Zazen continues after dark. The Unsui, taxing their ingenuity to solve the koan they have been given by trying to become the koan, find themselves seized by an almost irresistible urge to sleep. A change in their manner of sitting will betray any wandering of the mind or any impatience. Immediately, they will feel the warning stick on their shoulders. Wielding this is the responsibility of the monk in charge of the meditation hall, the Jikijitsu. The warning stick is never used for intimidation. It is the stick of compassion, used to rouse the trainee's spirit, and acts in place of the Bodhisattva Manjusri, the Bodhisattva of enlightenment and master of the meditation hall. The warning stick is used first to drive away sleepiness, then to relax stiffened muscles, and finally to correct the sitting posture. It is, in fact, a symbol of the monastic life, which from beginning to end follows strict rules of etiquette. During Ozeshin, in addition to the 3 meals that are eaten, the participants are given something to drink 4 times a day. Although the food in a monastery is the minimum needed by the human body and frugal in style, meals are nutritional and timed to conform to the rhythms of the trainees' bodies and minds. At 11 o'clock at night, when the outside world seems to have frozen, a drink of sweet rice wine is warming and delicious. The monk who takes charge of such services is known as the Jisharyo. The word means someone offering services to the Bodhisattva Manjusri, the symbol of wisdom and enlightenment. This responsibility belongs to a senior monk. All those who are undergoing training, confined in the meditation hall with Manjusri, are bodhisattvas, even the lowest ranked unsui, and are served just as Manjusri would be. As its nickname, Unsui Killer, suggests, Ozeshin is a severe form of training, with harsh, very harsh, discipline. But on the other hand, the trainee is treated with respect and watchful protection. It is an excellent system of education, reminiscent of both a strict father and a loving mother. Midnight. The lights are extinguished and the meditation hall enters a brief moment of rest. But for the monks training to reach Satori and who must consider 7 days as a single day, lying down is forbidden. They sleep as they are, seated. This is known as Zasui. Zen is a branch of Buddhism that developed in China. This temple, the Nankaji Temple, stands in the suburbs of Xingquan, a city in southern China. The temple is a holy place connected with Huineng, the sixth and last of the famous patriarchs of Chinese Zen, who lived between the 5th and 8th centuries. There are always visitors in the grounds. Hui Neng was born in a nearby farming village in 638 AD, at the beginning of the Tang period. His family was poor, and he sold firewood for a living. He is said to have had no education. He attained spiritual enlightenment while turning a millstone with his feet. He was then still a layman in a monastery under the 5th patriarch, Hung Zhen. It was Hui Neng who laid the principal foundations of Zen. Zen was taken to China in the 6th century by the Indian monk Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma is an almost legendary figure, and few details of his life are known. There were, however, conspicuous differences between his teachings and those of other forms of Buddhism. Leap directly into the world of Buddha's enlightenment. Awaken to the true self hidden in the recesses of your mind. Teachings like these were well received by the Chinese, who tended to take a practical view of life and people and to accept them as they were. Chinese Zen searched for the way to truth in everyday life, without complicated learning or a series of closely constructed regulations. During the Tang period, from the 7th to the 10th centuries, and the Sung period, from the 10th to the 13th centuries, China saw a succession of great Zen masters who attained the same enlightenment as Shakyamuni. Monks of later generations began to search for hints in the experiences of enlightenment and the words and actions of the great masters that would help them in their own training. The collections they made became the origins of the koan. At the Nankaji Temple, there are 7 priests and about 30 students studying under a master with 40 years of experience in Zen practice. The text for today's lecture is the Platform Sutra of the 6th Patriarch. Chinese Zen later changed, but it lives on here at the Nankaji Temple. Japanese Zen faithfully adopted the monastic style of life developed in China, further refined it and polished it, and perfected a specific style of training. One of the major activities of normal monastic life is religious mendicancy, or takuhatsu, that is, begging. Shakyamuni strictly forbade monks to engage in productive activity. Takuhatsu is a traditional practice of begging that follows the teachings of Shakyamuni. Of begging, it is said, "You may ignore a whole village, but don't ignore a single house." In other words, every house must be visited, with no distinction made between rich and poor. And the mendicant should not mind if he is given nothing. When he is given something, he should accept it politely and press his palms together in the attitude of prayer and gratitude. Monks in training must bear in mind that they live on the charity of others, and they must give them the pleasure of giving. To this end, they must abandon selfish ideas and become beggars. That is takuhatsu. There are quite a number of stories of monks whose experiences while begging gave them the insight to solve a koan, and thus to move towards satori. At the Shogenji Monastery, rice is planted at the beginning of summer each year. The rice grown by the monks is harvested in the autumn and becomes the rice for the cakes eaten at the new year. No work for a day, no food for a day. The spirit of Chinese Zen is still very much alive in Japanese monasteries. Manual labor is not only a means of supporting one's daily life, it is also an effective aid to reaching enlightenment. In Rinzai Zen in particular, finding enlightenment through labor is placed above finding enlightenment through the seated contemplation of Zazen. Ozeshin has continued for 7 days and is now drawing to an end. The Unsui are almost in a hurry to visit the master's room for interviews, but their struggles with the koan have not gone very well. The senior monks see this and try to send them back to avoid wasting time on pointless meetings with the master. For the Unsui, however, the interview is of vital importance, and they are in no mood to withdraw. They are driven into a mental corner from which advance or retreat seems impossible. Yet they persist. Not even the senior monks can dampen their zeal. What is the satori one obtains through the koan? How is it achieved? There are many examples and stories about the masters of former times, but when all is said and done, these were the experiences of different individuals and occurred once and no more. They are not things that can be copied by others. Just as the locust sheds its skin, so the Unsui must break out of their shells by their own efforts. The master can only watch over them and wait. Early dawn of the 8th day. Possession is completed. How many monks were able to find Satori through this period of possession? Satori is said to be the encounter with one's true self, but it is in no way a special or mysterious experience. No man becomes in an instant a totally different person or discovers superhuman abilities that others lack. The Satori that Zen brings is sought because it offers a glimpse of one's own mind in a state of complete detachment. It brings that calmness of being that makes no distinction between the self and others, and so permits the practice of love and compassion for all living things. It is March. For the first time since he entered the monastery, Asayama has been given permission to return home for several days. This is his first return to the outside world for a year. What did he gain from the rigors of Ozeshin? Did he, in his 1 year of training in the monastery, experience anything worthy of being called Satori? How far did he progress with the koan? This is something no one can tell. At any rate, he has decided to stay at the monastery and make a determined effort to tackle the challenge of Zen training. It is now April. Once again, the season of blossoms has come to the countryside about the Shogenji Zen temple. And once again the young people arrive in search of Satori,